Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization. Breaking through strength plateaus, video number 5, building strength versus testing strength. This is a juicy one. I sure hope it gets the views, likes, and shares, not because of monetization. Money is for the feeble. It's the attention I like. I like it when people say, oh my God, Dr. Mike, I loved your last video. I read every comment. Oh my God, it fills me with a joy that borders on the sexual. I bet you didn't want to hear that, but you might want to hear this. Classic plateaued lifter complaint that I've seen like, I don't know, a trillion times. Lifter's like, hey man, I'm not getting any stronger. And your response may be like, well, how do you know? And I say, well, you know, I'm testing my 1 rep max. Can't say that without laughing. I'm testing my 1 rep max once a week and it's not been going up. And you say, well, like, you know, what kind of training have you been doing? And they're like, I work up to my 1 rep max. You're like, right, that's the testing. What about the training? They're like, that's the training also. Oh boy. Then we have a bit of a situation. Here's the thing. Testing your 1RM does not make you much stronger, okay? It just mostly shows off if other stuff before then has made you stronger. And the thing is, you get stronger by training for strength, not showing off. This is a little different, but not so different from someone doing like posing in the mirror at the gym, and you're like, hey, you practicing for a show or just working on posing off season? They're like, no, man, I'm training. You're like, training for what? They're like, to get bigger, because the big guys, they do this, and this grows muscle. You're like, ooh, actually, no, it just shows the muscle off. Now, truth be told, if you generate a good deal of tension like this, you can grow some muscle if you're really weak and really a beginner, but gee whiz, you know, it's not really what moves the needle a ton. Just the same way, or much the same way in strength training, 1RM attempts don't really do much as far as stimulus. They do a little bit, but there are better ways to get stimulus. We'll talk about that in a bit. They do, however, come with a pretty big fatigue cost. Psychologically, they're real fatigue. I mean, real talk. A 1RM is like, you got to do that shit. You got to get your nuts together in a sack and zip that up and fucking go. You don't, one does not simply. Actually, funny story, my wife and I, I'll be more accurate. I'm making my wife watch Lord of the Rings trilogy with me, slowly over several weekends. The marathon thing was out of the question. And I actually got to see the one does not simply walk into Mordor thing. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen this in years. And this has been memed more times than people have probably seen Lord of the Rings. So in any case, one does not simply 1RM. Like, you got to get your shit together, and that's going to cost you psychologically. And if you're not doing them with any bit of arousal, you're really not 1RM testing at all. You're just doing a bunch of singles, and that has its own downsides. Especially this is the case if you have a do or die mentality, which many people who test 1RMs often, that's kind of what they're getting off on, right? But it's fun when you're gaining, but it's also really fatiguing. Now, here's a real big problem. When you're testing 1RMs and they're not going up or they're going down, it's really fatiguing because the psychological fatigue is magnified by your feelings of failure, right? This is a problem because the fatigue adds to your program. I guess in this case, you don't have much of the rest of your program. But even if you do normal programming, Monday through Thursday, and then Saturday you do all your testing, instead of doing that, you're summing a lot of fatigue. You could just have been training. The amount of fatigue cost you have to that could have been filled up with actual training that works. It's like if you're trying to gain weight eating and you have a shitload of your meals are like broccoli and cauliflower rice. And someone's like, wouldn't they be better like actual high-calorie food? You're like, well, technically, broccoli and cauliflower rice have calories. You're like, yeah, technically, but they sure as hell shut down your ability to eat way more than the amount of calories you're getting in compared to the other foods like rice, pasta, etc. It's not that there's anything wrong with eating those things. And yeah, they are nominally helping you raise your calories, but at what expense? And that's the thing. 1RM testing has a big expense. It's not the end of the world, but you could be doing better. And if you're plateauing, you need to be doing better because clearly the shit you're doing is not working. So kind of in other words, you don't optimally get better by testing, you get better by training. And by analogy, like if you want to be good at math, you don't get better at math by doing math tests over and over. You actually have to study math, which if you like test taking and it's fun, your boy loves that shit. Shit, back in high school, I was a baller test taker, college too. And I had no friends. Have I mentioned that to you? That's why I was good at tests. They were my friends. But look, taking tests is sweet and you learn some things, but you really got to study, and that's how you improve your ability to actually take the tests. What ends up happening is the gyms across the country right now, a lot of people are training, quote unquote, for strength, but they're really just testing themselves all the time, and there's not a whole lot of training happening. If you're one of these people, and it's a pretty common problem, then you may be experiencing a plateau. How do you get yourself into this kind of stupid situation? Well, a lot of people start out as beginners. And as a beginner, just testing your strength is such a big relative stimulus to what you're used to, you make really, really good gains. And also, you're too weak to fatigue yourself much. Like someone's like, yeah, man, fucking hit another 1RM on squats. 145 pounds, baby. Woo! And you're like, oh, word up. And you're like, do you feel any fatigue? Like, no way. Like, well, I also don't feel fatigue when I do fucking behind the neck skull crusher standing with a fucking 145, 145 is not that big of a deal. As you get stronger and stronger, get into squatting 225, 275 for max, it starts beating you up a little more, and because you're not a beginner anymore, you don't get that big stimulus, and all of a sudden the stimulus to fatigue ratio is all wrong, and that could cause you to get into a plateau. So if you continue to train over time, testing starts out as decent training and incrementally falls to where it's really shitty training. So if you're doing testing often, stop. To quote the Karens of social media, can you just not? I mean, can you just stop? I love it. That's how I read those comments. I think that's an accurate reading. So instead of testing, I got you one better. Do 3 to 4 months of training with multiple sets of roughly 3 to 6 reps per set, right? Slowly increase how much weight you're using every session or every other session by 5 to 10 pounds here and there on your sets of 3 to 6, maybe even some assistance work. You don't even have to do that. Use deloads and recovery sessions when you feel a bit beat up and you can't go, and repeat this cycle for a few months. This will actually cause the strength gains because the volume is finally high enough to provide a stimulus. You essentially just get more practice. And after this, several month period, take a month to practice sets of 1 to 3, a peaking phase basically, then test your maxes, and very likely you'll have gotten a lot stronger. So your problem was that you were testing and not training enough. Now that you're mostly training and only testing at the end, looks like you had no problem at all. Now, this requires patience. Coming from a world in which you test all the time to a world in which you test once every, 5 months or something, 4 months, that's rough. So do you have to do that? No. Maybe start testing once every other week, once every 3 weeks, and just fill in the other time with high quality training if you really can't just pull your way cold turkey from actually testing all the time. It requires patience, and patience is a virtue. You've probably heard that your whole life, hopefully. During the time that you're doing this training, you won't be able to tell if your RMs are going up, and that could make you skittish. Ooh, I better test. Don't do that. Don't do that. Why? Because you're not fucking 10 years old. 10-year-olds watching this, I really apologize, first point. Second point, if you're 10, go ask mom and dad to turn this off, turn on YouTube Kids or whatever. Barney the Dinosaur, I don't know if that's the thing still. When I was growing up, your boy was watching that shit. Don't watch this channel if you're 10. I don't even know what kind of shit you'll learn. You'll have an interesting vocabulary, highly intellectual vocabulary into swearing in obscene ways. So you're not 10, which is to say you don't need constant gratification. Okay, if you tell me straight face, we meet at a gym, and you're like, yeah, man, I got to test every week, otherwise I get demotivated. I'm going to do one of these, world's longest blink versus usual my fucking blink ticks that I do anyway. You'll get both, damn it. So come on. You're in this for the long haul. You want results. You got to put in the work. That's like eating a bite of food and be like, fuck, am I big yet? Measure my biceps. What the fuck is wrong with you? Finish the food, finish 10 meals over the week, finish 80 meals over whatever, multiple months, and then measure your biceps, and then maybe you'll have something to it. So gaining strength and testing strength are really quite different, and the more advanced you get and the more likely you are to hit plateaus, the more likely you are to hit plateaus, then the more different they really are. And if your plateau is a testing problem and not a gaining problem, your solution's super simple. You start to train to gain. You do that for months, and you may very well like the outcome of the tests when they're relatively infrequent, give you time to train and time to get stronger. Folks, I'll see you next week for the next video in the series. You had better be stronger, and if even one of you tests their 1RM in the following week, I'm not releasing the video. We'll just put up a black screen and says, somebody lied. See you next week.